Hello, hello, molo, moro. Welcome to African Electronic. In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at how to build the rhythmic basis for your African house, also known as Afro House tracks. Now, as you can see, I'm in Studio One, and I've got two empty MIDI channels placed here. The first one says kick on it, and I've simply loaded a kick sample into Studio One's a drum sampler, which is called Impact. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert a pattern over here. So if I press Control Shift P, that adds what's known as a pattern in Studio One. And this is Studio One step sequencer. It's great for writing drums, percussion, bass, leads, and any other components that make up the rhythmic elements for your tracks. So for this tutorial, I'm going to use a simple 4 on the floor kick pattern. And what 4 on the floor simply means is that there is a kick, in this case, on every beat in the bar. So a bar in the time signature that we have, which is our 4/4, would have 4 beats in it. But Studio One step sequencer, as you can see here, shows 16 steps, which is based on the resolution that you have selected at the top here. So to simplify things, a beat here is from 1 to 4. There's 4 steps. So that's beat 1. Second beat 5 to 8. Third beat 9 to 12. And the fourth beat 13 to 16. So I'm just going to put a beat on the first step, the 5th, the 9th, and the 13th step. So that's the first beat, second beat, third beat, and fourth beat. 4 on the floor. And I'm just going to play this so that you can hear what it sounds like. That's a basic 4 on the floor kick drum. I'm sure you've heard this hundreds, if not thousands of times. Now, I just wanted to point out that in African house music, you're not always limited to the 4 on the floor kick pattern. The 4 on the floor kick pattern in this case holds the tempo of the track. But as you know, with a lot of African music in general, there's a lot of syncopation as well as polyrhythms in the music. So even the kick pattern doesn't necessarily have to be just your simple 4 on the floor. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to stick with the 4 on the floor, which is a common kick pattern in African house and in most house music in the world in general. Now I'm going to move on to my second MIDI track here, where it says clap, and like the kick, I just have an impact loaded in with a clap sample. And I'm just going to do the same thing and insert a pattern here. So Control Shift P. And I've got an empty pattern that says clap. Now, for the purposes of this, I'm using a clap. But in African house music, you can use any other percussive element that you like to form the rhythmic basis of your track. And in most cases, layering them can work really, really well. So you can use claps, you can use snares, you can use other different types of percussions, djembe, congas, bongos, wooden elements, wood sticks, and any other percussive element that you might find, you might record, you might create. Organic sounds sound really good in general, but for the purposes, I'm just going to stick with the clap to make things easier to understand and to follow along with. So the first thing I'm just going to do is show a sort of what I'm going to call a traditional house music pattern where a clap or a snare sits on the second or the fourth beat. And in this case, in Studio One, it will be the 5th and the 13th steps, just like this. So if I play this, and I'm sure you've also heard this hundreds if not thousands of times. And this basic beat sort of came from how disco music was structured as well. But what differs with African house music, as you will see, is the use of a lot of syncopation. So in Studio One, one nifty thing you can do is if you click on the inspector on the top left here, click on the eye, you're going to see a section which shows variations here. So I'm just going to keep the variation that we have now of what I call the traditional sort of house pattern. I'm just going to label it. And what I'm going to do here, if you see on the top panel here, you see a plus, a duplicate variation, and then a minus, which deletes the variation. So if I click on the plus, it just creates an empty variation, as you can see. I'm just going to name this African House. Right, so let's go into the African house patterns that we're going to look at today. So for the first one, I'm just going to have a clap on the 4th step, on the 8th step, and on the 11th. Let's hear what this sounds like. There we have it. We've already got a nice basis for an African house track. From this, actually, we can build a lot more things. We can layer things. We can put a few other elements using different percussive sounds to sort of give a contrast or call an answer, etc. But we're just going to keep it simple for this demonstration. So let's see if we can make another variation based on this pattern that we have at the moment. So I'm just going to go back to this panel here, and I'll click on duplicate variation. And let's call this African House 2. Let's see what we can do. Maybe if we add one on the 15th step. Let's play this. There we have it. We've already got another nice rhythmic basis for an African house track. Let's do another one. Let me just copy this. If I just Control C, make it easier and quicker. Add a 3 there. Okay, what can we do with this? Well, how about if we add a clap on the 1st step? It sounds nice. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Why stop here? Let's try, and instead of having a clap on the 15th step, let's try one on the 13th. Nice. And actually, that's another idea. So you could actually have something like this, like a clap or a snare playing, and then sing over it with your mouth or whatever to create another percussive sound, a human-made percussive sound, and you can layer that and sort of, play around with various organic elements layered over samples, and you can get some really nice sounds. Okay, let's keep going. How about if we bring back the 15th over here? Nice. That is nice. I'm sure you may already have heard some tracks with these types of rhythms. So let's do maybe one last one. See how this goes. How about let's just play this and see what we come up with. Actually, what I want to do is extend this pattern so that it's 2 bars. So the way we do that in Studio One, if we just go to steps, and right now it's in 16, so if we double this to 32, and then right click duplicate. You can also use the letter D when you've selected the sample. And then we'll just extend these out so that they're over 2 bars. Go back to the clap. And over here, how about we add an extra one on this 30-second step instead of having it just looping over 1 bar. Let's play this and then see what else we come up with. Nice, nice, nice. And what you can also do is vary the velocities a little bit to humanize them, and maybe even give some of them an accent. So the way you give an accent in Studio One is if you just hover over the note that you want to accent, hold Control, left click, and that's an accent. So it's going to be louder than the others. And then you can just vary some of the velocities. Another thing that's really good to do, because right now the notes are hitting exactly on the 16th notes here, and that can sound very robotic, but if you add some swing, then you can get some nice groove going. So if we just play this, and I'm just going to increase the swing to see where it can sit right, where it sounds good. Do you hear that? Some of the notes are slightly nudged, slightly delayed. They're swinging. And that's where you get those really nice grooves for African house. And what the swing parameter is basically doing is every note that's sitting on the even numbers. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and you just keep going. That's being delayed slightly by the swing. So it's playing just a little bit late. It's been nudged slightly. And that, gives a very, very nice groove. So combining a lot of these things like, syncopated notes, velocity and accenting some notes and reducing some of the velocity on others, using a swing, the swing parameter to delay some notes will give a really, really nice groove and rhythmic basis for your tracks. Now, I'm just going to play through all of these and compare them with starting from the traditional house all the way to the variations that we've made. And we can see what we've made. There we have it. So you can literally use each one of these in a different track. And they're going to sound different depending on the sounds that you use, depending on how your bass interacts with your beat, your chords, the melodies, and all that sort of stuff. Or you could use maybe a couple of these in a single track to provide variation in the drums at different sections. Maybe for the first section, you can use something that's a little more simple and sparse. And then when you want a bit more energy, you can bring in more of the sort of more hits and more notes to play whichever sound, whether it's a clap or other percussive sound or layers. And yeah, that's how you sort of contrast the energy in your tracks as well, to say, okay, here it's a bit less energy on the intro and the build, and then when it's peaking, you bring in more notes, more sounds, more layers, etc. And yeah, so let me know in the comment section which one of these you like. If you make a track using any of these methods, feel free to post it in the comment section. If you learned something as well, give this a like, subscribe to the channel, share it. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and I look forward to seeing you soon. This has been African Electronic.